everyone, I am Denise Marmidi Tumulang from BPED 2A. So for today's lesson, I'm going to discuss about the European literature. So in Renaissance, the creation of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in 1440 allowed for much of the literature during this time to be read by a much larger audience. With the new wave of knowledge, many writers of this time period drew on classical methods and styles from the ancient Greeks. This included Aristotle, Homer, Plato, and Socrates. Some Romans that were modeled were Cicero, Horace, Sallust, and Virgil. Politics were often an influence in Renaissance literature. Some writers wrote directly about politics and gave advice to rulers, seen by Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli's famous work, The Prince, and another source of inspiration was Christianity, which had immense influence during this time. So here are the important Renaissance works. The next topic is all about the Enlightenment period. So this period in literature is marked by new emphasis on logic and intellectualism. Writers put more attention to useful rather than abstract thought and express desires for improving the conditions of humanity through tolerance, freedom, and equality. With the reason and logic, many writers began to question the established churches of the time and the rise of this theme was seen during this time. The philosophies in France during this time were important to the period and contributed many new thoughts characteristic of the Enlightenment. So the rising middle class during this time made their preferences for prose, novels, and short stories, significant literary genres. Romanticism. This period is a movement away from the Enlightenment focus of reason and logic, focusing more on imagination and emotions instead. So, key characteristics of this period include an interest in the common man and childhood, emotions and feelings, the awe of nature, emphasis on the individual needs, and the importance of the imagination. So, symbolism was seen as superior because they could suggest many things instead of the direct interpretations of allegories instead of the scientific view of the universe as a machine. Romanticism saw it as organic, such as a living tree. So here are the romantic authors.
So realism, it is the realist movement portrayed by the hypocrisy, brutality, and dullness of the bourgeois. Scientific objectivity and observation were used to influence literature during the period of realism. Realism often confronted readers with the harsh realities that life had to offer. This movement rejected the idealization of nature, the poor, lover, and polite society during the Romantic period, and instead shown the dark side of life. Some writers and the cruelty of the developing industrialism in Europe during this time. So, these are the realist writers. Victorian period. The Victorian period showed a much more sober view of idealism than the visionary view seen in Romanticism. The Victorians saw nature as harsh and cruel, contrasting the kind and harmonious view during the Romantic era. Some focuses of this era were the middle class, reality work, and nations rather as a whole instead of the individual. The trinity of the Victorian period was religion, science, and morality. Some of the values were earnestness, respectability, utilitarianism, and the strong emphasis on duty. Major ideas of this period of literature included the glorification of war, expansion of empires, industrialism, economic prosperity, and reform. And these are the Victorian period writers. Modernism. Like the period of realism, modernism was also critical of middle-class society and morality, but wasn't concerned by social issues. Modernism was characterized as having a concern for the aesthetic and beautiful. While it arose before World War I, it would flourish after it because of the immense turmoil and social problems it created. This period was marked by quickly and unexpected shifts from traditional ways of viewing the world. And these are the modernist writers. Postmodernism. Postmodernism developed after World War II and utilized techniques such as fragmentation, paradox, and questionable narrators. This was a reaction against Enlightenment ideas that were seen in literature from modernism. Modernism tended to stray from the neatly tied up ending in modernism and celebrated chance over craft. And these are the the postmodernist works. And that's all for our report in European literature.